It was supposed to be another light-hearted appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, just another evening on late-night television where Sandra Bullock, America's beloved, poised and polished star, would charm her way through the typical banter, perhaps tease a new Netflix project, laugh at some childhood photos Jimmy dug up, and exit to a round of applause. But what unfolded that night was anything but routine. And no producer, no segment writer, no audience member, not even Bullock herself could have anticipated the slow-building friction that would erupt so suddenly and publicly, catching everyone off guard as it escalated from an awkward miscommunication to a storm of principled pride and pent-up frustration. For what began with laughter and harmless jabs, Kimmel referencing Bullock's age-defying looks, joking that she must sleep in cryo chambers, and she, used to such banter, brushing it off with a practiced smile, soon edged into discomfort when Jimmy began pressing her on a topic she clearly hadn't come to discuss: the controversial casting and production ethics of a film she had finished 2 years prior, a project whose behind-the-scenes tensions had already sparked social commentary. And while Bullock tried to pivot politely, Jimmy persisted with the kind of smug, performative curiosity that often plays well on camera, but in person feels more like a provocation, asking why she hadn't publicly addressed some of the accusations surrounding the set's labor treatment and the executive decisions. And her demeanor, still calm but tight, shifted as she responded with a clipped, "Because I wasn't the producer, Jimmy." And though her tone suggested it was time to move on, Kimmel, ever the comedian looking for a punchline, quipped, "Well, you're the face of the movie. People assume you were calling the shots." And that line, delivered with the same smirk he'd used in countless interviews, landed badly, the audience offering a mixed reaction of laughter and a few audible oofs, while Sandra's eyes narrowed just slightly, her smile gone, replaced with a cool sharpness as she leaned forward and said, "You know, there's a difference between asking a question and cornering someone because it makes good TV." And while Kimmel tried to soften the moment with a joke, "I corner people with love," it fell flat. And Bullock didn't laugh, instead offering a pointed monologue about how women in Hollywood, especially those over 50, are expected to answer for every misstep on set, whether or not they were involved, while their male counterparts are rarely grilled with the same intensity, and her voice, steady and clear, cut through the studio like glass, forcing the audience into silence, their discomfort now mirroring her own. And as Jimmy tried to interrupt, to reclaim control, to add levity, to steer back into safe waters, Sandra raised a hand slightly and said, "No, let me finish." And in that moment, it was no longer a talk show segment. It was a woman taking back space, refusing to be the friendly face, forced to absorb public accountability for things outside her authority. And when she finally paused, Jimmy nodded, uncharacteristically subdued, and said, "Fair." But it didn't feel like resolution. It felt like retreat. And then, just as he attempted to pivot into the next cue card, something about an embarrassing college story she'd shared before, Bullock stood up, not violently, not with spectacle, but with a quiet power that said enough, and she looked at him, calm but unapologetically stern, and said, "I came here to talk about art, about stories, not to be put on trial." And with that, without waiting for approval, she walked off stage, leaving Jimmy stunned, the producers frozen, and the audience caught between awkward applause and stunned silence. And while the camera cut to an unplanned commercial, and the show resumed minutes later with a scramble of filler content, it was clear that the night had taken a turn no one would forget. And soon after, social media lit up with clips, hashtags like "Sandra storms off" and "Kimmel called out," trending within the hour. The internet split between those applauding her dignity and those defending Jimmy's journalistic right to ask tough questions, while behind the scenes, insiders leaked that Bullock's team had made it clear certain topics were off limits. a request allegedly acknowledged and then ignored for the sake of ratings. And as think pieces followed and media outlets dissected every second of the confrontation, Bullock herself remained quiet, choosing not to ride the wave of controversy. Her only comment coming days later in a handwritten note posted on her official page that read, "Every woman in the spotlight knows what it's like to smile through interrogation masked as charm. Sometimes silence is complicity. That night I chose not to smile, and those few words said more than any press release could, reigniting conversations about media ethics, power dynamics, and the performative nature of modern talk shows." And though Jimmy addressed the incident vaguely on his next episode, calling it a rare misfire of tone, the damage was done, not to Bullock, whose grace under fire only enhanced her respect, but to the carefully controlled illusion of harmless celebrity interviews, which the incident had shattered, revealing the often tense negotiations behind the curtain, where authenticity and control are constantly at odds. And so what began as just another celebrity guest spot became something else entirely. A flashpoint. In the long, slow push for fairness in a world that expects women to be both open and silent, vulnerable and agreeable, always charming and never confrontational. And in refusing that double standard on live television, Sandra Bullock reminded millions that sometimes walking away isn't weakness, it's the most powerful answer of all.